This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Good morning. Welcome to a short biblical reflection on the Gospel according to John, chapter 15, in the lectionary from verse 9 up to 17. Remaining in God's love, the Gospel reading for the sixth Sunday of Easter year B. In my preceding reflection, I have joined verses 9 up to 11 with the preceding text. In the lectionary, this Gospel reading begins from verse 9. Probably it is like a thematic unit because the word, the verb to love, and the word love, they start from verse 9. However, we can distinguish verses from 12 up to 17 because this unit is framed by similar expressions. In verse 12, this is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Verse 17, this I command you, that you love one another. Then in between we can distinguish three statements. The first lines begin with negative statements. No one has greater love than this, that one lays down his life for his friends. Verse 15, I no longer call you slaves, because the slave does not know what his master is doing. And verse 16, you did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you. And followed now by positive. Verse 14, you are my friends if you do what I command you. Verse 15, but I have called you friends because I have revealed to you everything I heard from my Father. And verse 16, that you might go and bear fruit, and that your fruit may remain, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he will give you. Also, verse 14 and 16 are more closer because we have repetition of the same concept. If you do what I command you, that you might go and bear fruit, and that your fruit might remain. Then, of course, in the first two statements, repetition of the word friends, and the last two, the repetition of the word Father. Let us see now the larger unit beginning from verse 1. If we consider from verse 1 up to 17, we can distinguish three units. From verse 1 up to 5, it is framed by the same expression. Verse 1, I'm the true vine, and verse 5, I'm the vine. Then verses 6 up to 11, there are three conditional statements beginning with if. Verse 6, if anyone does not abide in me. Verse 7, if you abide in me. And verse 10, if you keep my commandments. About verses 12 and 17 I already mentioned. Now they are also going some red lines. At the beginning begins with the concept of abiding, remaining. Abide in me as I abide in you. Verse 4. Verse 5, the one who abides in me and I in him. Then verse 7, if you abide in me and my words abide in you. And then it is now merged with the concept of love, because the verb to translate it to abide, which can also be translated to remain, to live in, expresses a very deep personal relationship with God, which in other words is love. So verse 9, as the Father has loved me, so I have loved you, abide in my love. And verse 10, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandment and abide in his life, in his love. And now verse 12 takes this, that you love one another as I have loved you, and of course in conclusion that you love one another. Then also there is a stress on keeping commandments from verse 10, but also even earlier there was abiding in the words of Jesus. And the commandments are, of course, taken in the last part, that this is my commandment, if you do what I command you, and this I command you. And the concept of bearing fruit goes all over from verse 2, to make it bear more fruit, that Father prunes the branches. Then also verse 5, bears much fruit, the one who abides in Jesus. And then Father will be glorified, that you bear much fruit in verse 8, and in conclusion, that you might go and bear fruit, and that your fruit might remain. And the concept of Father is also repeated all over, starting from verse 1, my Father is the vine grower. Verse 7, as you ask for whatever wish, and it will be done for you, my Father is glorified by this. And in the last concluding part, twice, everything I heard from my Father in verse 15, and then in verse 16, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name will be given. Then let's go to the biblical context. About the new commandment, we hear in the Gospel according to John earlier in chapter 13. When Judas had gone out, Jesus said, "Now the Son of Man is glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and he will glorify him right away. Children, I'm still with you for a little while. You will look for me, and just as I said to the Jewish religious leaders, where I'm going, you cannot come. Now I tell you the same. I give you a new commandment, to love one another, just as I have loved you. You also are to love one another. Everyone will know by this that you are my disciples if you have love for one another." We could also take some other texts from the letters of St. John. I have just chosen one from the first letter of John, chapter 7, chapter 4, beginning from verse 7. Dear friends, let us love one another, because love is from God. And everyone who loves has been fathered by God and knows God. The person who does not love does not know God, because God is love. By this the love of God is revealed in us, that God has sent his one and only Son into the world, and so that we might live through him. This is love, not that we have loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son to be the atoning sacrifice for our sins. Dear friends, if God so loved us, then we also ought to love one another. I would like to wish you a nice day, a nice reflection on this gospel reading. God bless you.